So I really enjoy being alone. Does anybody else like being alone? I like being alone. It's nice. And it's not that I don't like people at all. Like, with my line of work, I have to like people, right? And I like people. But sometimes you just want to be alone. You just want to have time to yourself with your thoughts, right? Like, one of my favorite things to do is I like to go just down to the Boyden Pit and just go there by myself and walk around, right? And it's very important that I be alone when I do that. Like, if I see a car there, I'm not going to stop. Right? And it's the worst thing in the world to me when I go out there and I start walking and I get a little bit down the path and I hear something behind me and look, and there's a person. Drives me crazy. I get so upset, right? It's not like they're doing anything wrong, but it's just like, no, I wanted to be alone, right? What if they're loud? Especially because I'm usually looking for birds, and most people are way too loud. They scare away all the birds. It makes me really mad, right? But it's like when you're trying to be alone, there's nothing more aggravating than when someone shows up, right? You just want to be alone. You want to be by yourself. And people, as much as I like people, they're loud, right? And they don't think about what I want. Like, why aren't they putting me into consideration as they walk around talking? I feel like the woman in our story today could relate to that, though, because I think she really wanted to be alone. Right? She did. We know that because that's kind of how John lays out the story, right? That this woman is going to the well. There's nobody else there except there's Jesus, but there's nobody else there, and she doesn't expect anyone else to be there, right? Because of this one little detail John puts in there, that it was the 6th hour, which in the way they kept time in Israel at that point meant it was noon, right? You start your day at 6 o'clock because that's when dawn is, and that's when you start counting your hours. So the 6th hour is noon. Right? And so we know that this woman is going to the well at noon, which means she wants to be alone because nobody goes to the well at noon. You just don't do it. Right? For the same reason, like in the middle of summer in the heat of the day, we don't mow our lawns at noon. Because they live in the desert. They live in an arid, hot climate. And noon is hot. And you're going to need water before then. Most people go to the well like first thing in the morning. That's what you would do. It's cooler. Then you have water for the day. Everything can go fine. You don't wait till noon. Right? But this woman was. Because she wanted to be alone. And I can guarantee, as she got closer to that well and saw a man sitting there, she was not happy. Right? That was like her worst nightmare. Right? But, she needs water. So she keeps going. Like, you can't just go home. You walked all that way and you still need water. So she goes to the well, and then it gets so much worse for her, because then the worst actual thing happens. He starts talking to her, right? Which I'm sure she was not happy about. And we actually can tell that. Right? Because as Jesus starts talking to her, asks her for a drink, she's like taken aback and like, whoa, what are you doing talking to me? Right? And I think it's a couple reasons. I mean, one, it's a strange man, which had to have been intimidating. And then it's a strange man who's also a Jew, and she recognizes that and says, this is not normal behavior. I'm a Samaritan, you're a Jew. We shouldn't be having a conversation. You shouldn't be asking me and talking to me like she's alarmed by this. And then it just kind of gets worse from there on for her, right? Because he asked her for a drink, and then, she's like, well, what are you doing talking to me? I don't know about this. And then he says, well, if you knew who you were talking to, you'd ask for living water, which just has to be the most confusing thing you've ever heard. Right? And she's like, what are you talking about? You can't even draw water up. Like, I have no idea what that means. Right? This guy is clearly crazy. What is he talking about? And he just keeps going in. No. I have living water, right, that you can drink of and never be thirsty again. And that gets her attention, because she doesn't want to have to come back to this well at noon the next day. Right? She says that. I'd like some of that living water. I don't want to be thirsty again. I don't want to have to keep coming to this well. And suddenly she's kind of on board with this guy, this stranger, and what he's offering her. And then Jesus says, well, go get your husband. And this is where the story all comes together. Because here is where we finally understand why she's coming at noon and why she wants to be alone, right? And why she's so scared talking to this guy. Because as she tells him, I don't have a husband, Jesus says, I know. But you've had 5 husbands, and now you're living with another guy who you're not married to. Right? That right there is why she comes at noon. Right? That's why she's coming alone. Because let me tell you, somebody in that culture at that time, somebody who's gone through 5 husbands, right? And that doesn't mean like she was divorcing husbands because she didn't have the power to. And it means they were divorcing her. They were kicking her out. Can you imagine the reputation she had in that town? Can you imagine the looks she got as she would come to the well filled with other women? The eye rolls, the whispers. Come on, let's be honest. We're a small town here. Right? If there was a woman like her, as she came in, into rocks as you're sitting at the table, you're going to go, hey, that's the woman. She's had 5 husbands, and now she's shacked up with this other guy, right? It's not going to work out. We already know, right? Right? That's what happens in towns like that. Right? That gossip was surely spreading, and I'm sure everywhere she went, she noticed that. Right? She would have been outcast. She would have been pushed out of Maine society because she would have been thought of as there's clearly something wrong with her. Right? You don't go through 5 husbands if there's not something wrong with you. That's why she's coming at noon. She doesn't want to be there when other people are. She doesn't want to have the looks. She doesn't want to have the whispers. She doesn't want people staring at her. She wants to be alone because when there's people around, it's usually not good. And yet here's Jesus, who knows everything about her, knows this history, knows that she's been through 5 husbands, knows that she's living with the guy who's not her husband, and he doesn't care about any of it. He's still offering her this amazing gift. And she is taken aback. And she realizes this guy is special. And we get this great scene where she I love the question she gives. She's like, wow, you seem like you know a lot. And it seems like she's got an idea of who he could be, right? She's like, well, are you a prophet? Let's talk about worship a little bit. It's kind of like a test she gives him, right? Like, how much do you really know about Scripture and about the stuff you seem to know about? Like, are you really a good religious figure? And he gives her a good answer. And then she's like, well, I've heard there's going to be a Messiah coming. And you can almost sense there's a little anticipation in that statement. Like, I heard there's a Messiah. I hope it's you. And Jesus affirms it. He says, yeah, I am he who you speak of. Right? Yeah, it's me. Right? And just at that moment, the disciples show up. Right? And you can see just how insane this whole situation is and how abnormal. Because I love the way that John puts it here. Like, they show up and they notice it, that Jesus is talking to a strange woman, and they're alarmed. And he points out, but they didn't say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be talking to her. And the only reason you put that in there and point that out is because that's what they were thinking and wanting to say. Right? You don't put something in there that you didn't even think of in the moment. Right? He's put it in there because he's like, well, we were all thinking, what is he doing? Why is he talking to her? But we didn't say it. And as they show up and Jesus welcomes them in, the woman kind of sneaks out. And she's gone. And she doesn't leave because she's so, freaked out about this experience. She doesn't leave to go run home and hide and be like, well, I'm never going outside again, right? If this is what it's like. No. She leaves to go back to town to find the people she was avoiding. That's what I love. To find the people she was avoiding, to find the people who have been gossiping about her and talking about her and giving her dirty looks. She goes back to town to find those people, to tell them the good news, that she found the Messiah. Right? To tell them about this Jesus guy that she met and how amazing he is. To tell them that they need to come out and they need to meet this guy as well. Right? And we get this amazing line. Many people believed in him because of what she told them. Right? Many people believed in Jesus because of her witness to others. Right? The woman who was the outcast, the woman who everyone looked down upon, the woman who wanted to be alone and away from everyone else because she didn't feel good enough. That was the woman who just brought people to Christ. And in fact, in John's gospel, she does it before any of the disciples do. They haven't even gone out and told others about Jesus yet, but she does. Because Jesus saw something there and offered her something that she desperately needed. He gave her living water, and he quenched her thirst. Because that's the thing, she was really, truly thirsty, just not for water. Because what is thirst? Right? Thirst is just a deep, deep desire for water, for something your body needs and craves. Right? That's what it is. Right? Thirst is lacking something. Like, there's nothing better than being really, really thirsty and getting that thirst quenched. I'm pretty sure the best thing I've ever drank in my life was just water out of a plastic jug after I got done baling hay, right? Like, that's the best thing I'll ever drink, because that is the most quenching experience you can have, because you are truly thirsty. Right? And getting that water and getting that thirst quench and just chugging down from that jug, that's great. This woman was truly thirsty, but it wasn't for water. She was thirsty. She was lacking acceptance. She was lacking love. She was lacking community. Right? That's what she was thirsty for. Right? And that's what the living water that Jesus gave her, right? The water that makes it so you're never thirsty again, that's what that was quenching. Right? He was giving her acceptance. He was giving her love. He was giving her community back again. He was giving her forgiveness. He was giving her all the good things that she lacked in her life, that she needed, that she longed for and didn't have. He gave her living water. And he quenched her thirst, and it changed her life. I like to think, we don't know what happened after that, but I like to think the people of that town were a little more forgiving. And maybe she went from being the woman who had 5 husbands to, that's the woman who showed us the Messiah. That would be great. Because that's who she was in Jesus' eyes. He didn't look at her for all her flaws and all her sins and all of her past. He just looked at her as a woman who God loved and who needed to know about that love. That's what Jesus came to bring. That's what living water gives us. And that's true for us. Because just as for that woman, there's probably something we're thirsty for in this life. There's something we're lacking. There's something we're desiring. Maybe it is love. Maybe it is acceptance. Right? Maybe it is forgiveness. Or maybe it's hope. Maybe it's strength. Maybe it's comfort in the midst of our hurts. But whatever it is, Christ comes to us with that same living water and says, drink. Whatever it is that we feel we're lacking or missing, Christ comes to us and says, I will give it to you, and I will fill you up. And when Christ comes and fills us up, when Christ gives us that water to drink, you never get thirsty again. It's not a temporary thing. It is forever. That's Christ's promise to us. And if Christ brings that to this woman at a well, this Samaritan woman who's gone through these husbands, this Samaritan woman with all her past, Christ brings it to us. There's no one he doesn't give it to. So drink of the living water this day. Know you are accepted and loved, just as that woman at the well. Know the good things God brings into your life, and know that Christ is there to give you whatever you need, whatever you're lacking, whatever you're thirsty for. Drink of that water and never, ever be thirsty again. Amen.